What's up, guys? We have another video with the white pieces against KDM Fan 1783. Now we're almost at an 1800 level of opponent. Quite scary. We're going to play the bishop's opening. We open up with e4, e5. We bring the bishop out to c4, eyeing the diagonal. Black copies us. I'm now going to develop and bring my knight out towards the center, controlling central squares. And my plan is to close off the pawn chain. Now, black goes knight c6. What does this threaten? Nothing, it's just a developing move, control central squares. What's the drawback? Well, in this exact copycat line, I have the option of not doing the normal d3 plan, and I have the option of bringing my queen out since he didn't move this pawn. And now this pawn is under attack. So this is very tricky, very tactical, and this is something you would know before you play it. Otherwise, you probably shouldn't go into it unless you can calculate pretty well and you have a lot more time on the clock. So black goes knight of 6. What does this threaten? My queen, a little pressure on the center. What's the drawback? Well, I was attacking this pawn, I'm pretty sure. So this is not a move. I'm pretty sure this is not a move. He needed to do something else. Maybe queen f6 or king f8. But this, if I take the pawn, I'll then be hitting the rook. You can't defend the rook without, I mean, if you move the king, that's dumb. So if he moves the rook like here and hits my queen, you get checkmated. So he has to go here to stop the checkmate, but that just looks bad. This looks terrible. Am I missing something? He auto moves here, defending against the checkmate. I wish I could get my bishop here right now, but I can't because of this pawn. I could maybe sack it, but then he can take with the pawn, and then it hits my knight. Although here he takes with the pawn, I go here anyway. If he takes my knight, I take his knight, he blocks. I mean, what am I gaining from that? Nothing really. Alternatives. I could develop my knight. I can go d3. This pawn's a little tender, so I'm thinking maybe develop the knight first to add some pressure. Can he attack my queen in any way? Not really. I'm going to develop my knight. I know normally I go for the f4 plan, but because, you know, all this transpired, my queen's in his position, and this is tender, and now I don't want to give him the counterplay that I normally give when I play f4, because my queen's, you know, over in his side of the board. I'm not castled. So now I'm up a very important pawn. I mean, the pawn's not important, but it ruins his king side, and that's important. So he might want to castle the other way and say, you know what, it's not the end of the world because my king won't be there. It's still kind of bad though. He goes d6. What does this threaten? Well, it solidifies his center and opens up his bishop's diagonal so he can develop. It's a logical move. The drawback, well, it doesn't actually, you know, threaten anything of mine. I don't have to respond. If I do attack his pawn, how does he defend it? And should I do that now or should I just develop? I should probably develop. Yeah, maybe that's too fancy. Although, how does he defend the pawn? Let's say queen here. And then what's my follow-up? I don't... Knight in here. But then if knight trades... yeah, I'm not defended. Okay, so let me just push my pawn so my bishop has control over this square. It will defend a knight if a knight goes there. But even more so, I'll just put the bishop there because that's a very strong pin, because this bishop here can't go back through the pawn chain. And this knight here can't go here to support it. So this pin would be super annoying, not to mention there's a queen, which makes it, you know, 10 times as deadly. You know, that pin would be good with just the bishop. It would be strong because the knight isn't, you know, defended in a proper way. But with the queen here as well, it's just the f6 square is just very weak, as well as h6, but that h6 is less relevant, as you can see. So when you look at drawbacks, you make the observation of what changed in the position, but not everything's relevant. Only some things are relevant, and you okay. So he goes here anyway. Even though I didn't put my knight here, he adds a little defense to the pawn. There's no real threat because it's kind of blocked in, and also there's potential stuff here, which makes this even more. What's the word? You want to do it even more enticing. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Maybe he was planning this with the idea I no longer have to checkmate because his queen's defending, and he wanted to kick my queen. However, now if he does it, the knight hangs because I put my bishop here, which hits the knight twice. So this plan works if I don't have my bishop here, because he can move his rook over, my queen can't take, and then his rook eyes this pawn, and that would be counterplay, right? Then he would have a nice square for his bishop, and my knight wouldn't be defended by a pawn, and I'd be in the situation he's in. And this is what happens when you play copycat chess. Don't copy. Like, even if they're objectively the best moves, which they're not, like, why are you even playing that game? Like, what are you doing? Is that why you play chess? That makes no sense. To copy your opponent? Like, go play a different game and have fun. Go play like a shooting game or something. So he does do what I said and moves the rook over. What does this threaten? The queen, the bishop behind it, and the pawn behind that. So you have to look at everything. You can't just look at the queen. You have to consider this g2 pawn. If you look at this move and your mind doesn't even process g2, you need to play slower games, and you need to say, okay, what is this? What changed in the position? Well, this rook has pressure along the entire g file up until g2. Okay, so anyway, the drawback is, like I said, this is undefended. Now, technically, you could probably take with the bishop. And if he takes your queen, that's a trade. But we don't want to trade. We want to win a piece. So just take with the queen. So that looks like a free knight. If he takes your bishop, that's why our knight's here defending, right? That's why we like to have a coordinating square. This square g5, it's hit by the knight, it's hit by the queen. It's not hit by our bishop. Remember, squares, pieces, when they occupy the square, don't control it. So, but it was being controlled. So he takes the queen. We have to take back, of course. We're up a knight and a pawn. Black goes here. What does this threaten? Well, he's clearly trying to get in this fork now that he's down a full piece. What's the drawback? Well, these pieces, it's 8 points of material, not in the game. Very precarious king position. And I'm obviously not going to allow this, right? It's not going to happen. On the other hand, he's threatening this pawn too. I don't really care about a pawn. I do care about the fork though, because for obvious reasons. I could castle long, but that would also hang this pawn as well. Although I'm not sure I could really save that pawn anyway in the long run. We could drop our bishop back perhaps. He could still take this. And then how do we defend this one? Yeah, it's a little ugly, so maybe we don't want to waste time doing that. If we just castle, okay, let's just castle queenside. That way, our king is safe, our rooks are connected, and now who cares if these pawns disappear? I'll gladly put 2 rooks on these open files, and a rook here is almost checkmate, right? We can arrange something. So, what do we want to do? Well, his rook's here. What does this threaten? The pawn. I guess technically we could defend it. Maybe we even should. Maybe we should go here. He'll win a pawn, but that would trade a pair of bishops. Sure, my bishop's strong, but I am up a piece, and I'm about to run at the 3-minute mark, and we know we don't want that. So let me just go here, say, okay, you can get a pawn, but you have to trade your bishop. He says no. He says, I'm going to pin your knight. Again, strong pin, because there's no way to really defend the knight. Good move. So what do we want to do? We're going to have to sack the exchange, unfortunately, but that's okay. What's the best way to go about this? I think maybe knight e1's the best move to hit his rook, saying if you take our rook, we'll take your rook. And his rook's trapped. It actually can't go anywhere. So if we take here, okay, he takes our pawn, but that's the same thing as him winning the f2 pawn, right? So he just gets one pawn still. Sure, it's around our king, but there are no queens. And now this knight protects this bishop. What does this threaten? This pawn, I guess. But the knight protects the bishop, so if I kick the knight, I guess he can take here, but then I take here, and if he takes here, I take here, so he can't do that. And if he takes here, then I take the bishop. So whichever way he takes, something's loose. And that's the problem with pieces defending pieces, especially knights, because knights are so easily kicked by pawns. So he does take our pawn, which threatens our bishop. If we take the bishop, he gets the piece back with check. So we take the knight. Now if he takes our pawn, we take the bishop. If he takes our bishop, we take the other bishop. Okay, so he takes our bishop. We have to take the other piece. And now we're up. We have 2 knights and he has 3 pawns. That's a weird imbalance. Okay, so now we don't want him to castle. Well, he can't castle through check, but okay, we definitely don't want him to castle, but we also don't want him to put a rook here, right? That's clearly his best, most active move, if it was possible. Not possible. So assuming his bishop was here, right? And he could put a rook here or castle, you definitely want to bring your rook over here and stop that. Even though the bishop is here, we still want to do that because it's the only open file other than this one, which is currently blocked by our knight. If it wasn't blocked by our knight, this would be great because you'd have an amazing threat coming. But considering the knight's here, this is a coordination square. I'm going to move my knight next, and good stuff can happen. So he moves a pawn. What does this threaten? Nothing. It just clamps down on the center, so my knight doesn't get as active. Drawback is it's a pawn move. It's slow. He didn't develop his rook, and his king is stuck. It only has the f8 square, which obviously is not a threat to us. This is taken away, that's true, but we have the f5 square, and so he moves his bishop. It threatens the rook. So now we're going to go here because, like I said, the knight's no longer here, right? So we don't need to waste a turn moving the knight. And when we did move the knight, he came with tempo, so it wasn't a waste of a turn. So anyway, he moves the king because he doesn't want to walk into that. Fair. If we give it check, he just goes back. So let's infiltrate with the rook, get some activity. I'm not going to make the best moves. I only have a minute 30. I just want to make some move that's reasonable, doesn't blunder, doesn't lose the game. Let's get a little more active with our bishop. I'm not so keen on taking the h7 pawn. I'd much rather have central pawns. You know. So, okay, so he attacks our bishop. It looks a little weird. What the hell is this? Okay, I'm just going to put it back because that's a weird move. He's going closer to my knights, so he's like walking into future potential checks. He's also blocking the bishop's protection of this. So he's pushing those pawns. Makes sense. I need to improve this knight, so I know this looks insane, but I'm gonna like get behind him. I wonder if there's a checkmating net. His king looks super boxed in. I guess he's gonna just push, takes, and try to run it through. Maybe I should have stopped this. Because here, and he pushes. So now I have to give up my piece. Whoops. But I get stuff in return, and I'm still up a knight. But I'm going to run out of time. 37 seconds. Move, just move, just move. Just move, just move. Okay. Just move, just move. Just move. God, this knight sucks. Oh, it's checkmate. Oh my god, he missed it. Thank God. Ah, I should have started focusing a lot earlier. Ah, why didn't I take the pawn? My rook's hanging. I don't know why I put it there. Ah, my bishop's hanging. Ah, he saw it. No. Oh my god. That's hilarious. Okay, so up 2 pieces, lose the game. But we do that quite often, actually. Actually, no, this might have been our first actual loss where our opponent finished the game. But he was terribly and completely losing the entire time. So let's see. Um, Probably just, again, at 2 minutes something is my guess. Look, yeah, look. +6. +6. Let's see, let's go a little further. +5. Yeah, the entire game was just crushing. And then, yeah, even at 1 minute, even after messing up the entire game, it's still +4. That's why, guys, time trouble. That's why it's so fun to watch the Speed Chess Championships, because even when Magnus or whoever, not with a minute, but when they get into like 10 seconds and under time trouble, even they do like the craziest stuff that makes no sense. But yeah, I hung everything. I hung my rook, I hung my bishop, I hung checkmate, I can't play with no time. It doesn't, my brain doesn't work. So let's see. Even here, +4 with 18 seconds. Yeah, winning the entire time, blundered with at the last second. Yeah, once I hit 10 seconds under my clock, let's see, 13 seconds. Yeah, +5 with 12 seconds. So, what are you gonna do? I panicked. Um, I don't know why I just closed my chessboard, but anyway, that was a good game. I need to move faster, or maybe now that I should start playing a little longer games. Either way, the intention of this series is not for me to win my games, it's for you to learn a thought process to implement in your games. It clearly works. Moral of the story, don't play with 10 seconds on your clock. So, uh, this is good stuff. I'm having a lot of fun. We get a couple more games now that my rating dropped till I hit 1800 again. Good news for you. Submit your rapid games for viewer analysis. Good luck in your chess. Goodbye.